Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Jessica Gifford, and we're talking about facilitating student friendships to improve mental health and well-being. So, really excited to have you here. And Lisa Wexler is joining us from Eduology to help help me, be on top of the chat. So feel free to pop questions, comments in the chat at any time. And thank you so much, Lisa, for being here. So I wanted to start out with a question to all of you. Again, if you're just joining, I'm Jessica Gifford. We're talking about facilitating student friendships to improve mental health. And thank you for all of the work that you do to support students. And by helping students build connection, you are making a big difference in their lives. But I'm going to be talking about the friendship deficit, how that impacts mental health and well-being, and then what we can do about it. But I want to start just by asking all of you, um, why are we having a friendship deficit? Why are students having so much difficulty making friends? So if you want to pop your ideas in the chat in just bullet form, in a few words. There are entire books written on this subject, so I know you may have a lot of thoughts about it, but I'm curious, what do you see as getting in the way? So I see social media, cell phones, video, technology, yes. COVID, remote learning, that definitely had an impact on students' social development. Too much work, assignments, the social stuff isn't a priority, overly high expectations, not talking to classmates, push for online learning. Yes, social media. Let's see. Yes, all of these things. So definitely started before COVID. We were seeing a huge increase in loneliness before COVID, but that definitely, Jana, I see. Yes, the nail in the coffin that definitely made things worse. Um, Fear of being cringe. Yes, that fear of like vulnerability, of not wanting to make mistakes, of awkwardness. I talk a lot about like trying to increase awkward tolerance or the tolerance for discomfort. Yeah. Insecurities, absolutely, Lindsay. Difficulties with in-person interactions, social skills, reliance on the online world. Yes, so I see lots of comments about social media, lack of ability, screen time, and those two things are really related. Right now, I'm reading The Anxious Generation, which talks about the decline of in-person interactions, and the increase in screen time and online, and that having a huge impact on skills as well as on mental health. So highly recommend that book to anybody, The Anxious Generation. Having to manage multiple identities online, comfort with in-person social skills, FOMO, language barriers, lack of confidence, disconnected in surroundings. Yes. And yes, okay. Sarah, you read The Anxious Generation too. I'm in the middle of it right now. It's kind of it's a tough reality, I think, that we're dealing with, but really well put. So thank you, everybody. Again, those who are just joining, I was just asking people to share in the chat. Um, what are some of the obstacles to students making friends? Why has it become so hard? Why do we have a friendship deficit? And again, I'm Jessica Gifford. I created Project Connect to help students make friends and build connection. So I'm gonna head over to the PowerPoint in a minute. I just want to read this other loss of day-to-day personal interactions. Yes. Yes, everything's moved online practically. You don't have to interact anymore. and a lack of third spaces, a lack of community spaces, changes to our physical environment. So thanks for all of those great thoughts. Yes, all of those things are contributing. And feel free to, as I move into the presentation, feel free to write comments or questions in the chat. I might not get to them right away, but Lisa's going to help me stay on top of those. So just as as I'm speaking, if there are ideas or thoughts or reactions, feel free to just put those in the chat. All right. So we're talking about facilitating student friendships specifically to improve mental health and well-being. Um, and I'm going to be talking just a little bit about the friendship or connection deficit that we're currently facing, how it impacts mental health and well-being. And then the bulk of the time we'll be talking about, okay, so what now? What can we do about it? I'll be sharing what I call the friendship formula, which are the science-backed behaviors that have been shown to build connection, and how can we all and how can we help students engage more in those behaviors? I'll be talking about Project Connect, which is a program that I created that helps students make friends and that makes that process easier. And for those of you who stick around to the end, there's a conversation cafe menu giveaway, which is kind of a script for a kind of a deeper conversation that people can have one-on-one or in small groups. So you can use it in the groups that you work with. You can use it as a one-time friending event or however you want to use it. So some big picture trends. This is from the American College Health Association survey that many campuses use. You may be familiar with it. So almost half of students are lonely. This is from the spring of 2025. And that number is actually down from COVID. So it peaked at 54%. So we're heading in the right direction. Hopefully that's a trend that continues. I think that a lot of colleges are becoming more intentional around helping students develop relationships on campus and being thoughtful about that and moving away from you know, we're just bringing students here and it's all going to happen on their own. So that's moving in a positive direction and have a very long way left to go still. Gen Z has the highest rates of loneliness. So if you look at loneliness across the generation, the younger you get, the lonelier you are. And first year students say meeting new friends is their top priority. So students really want to make friends. So, just wanted to share this decline in friendships. This is across US adults, not specific to college students. That almost 1 in 2 adults had 6 or more close friends in 1990. That dropped to 1 in 4 in 2024. So almost cut in half the number of adults who have 6 or more close friends. And then the number with no close friends jumped pretty dramatically from 3% in 1990 to 17% in 2024. So that is a 500% or 5x increase. So loneliness is a problem in and of itself, and also really concerning because it's fueling the mental health crisis. Loneliness significantly increases anxiety, depression, and suicide risk. And it's a precursor or early indicator of many mental health problems. So you can think of loneliness kind of like the canary in the coal mine or a warning signal for suicide risk. So fortunately, the reverse is also true. If loneliness is a risk factor for mental health problems, by addressing loneliness and by helping facilitate friendships, we can help prevent and reduce many mental health problems. So obviously not all, it's not the only solution. It's not the only contributor, but it can have a really big impact. So positive relationships are the strongest predictor of happiness. You may be familiar with the Harvard study, which is like the longest longitudinal study they've done, and showed one of the most dramatic findings is that having close relationships predicted happiness, life satisfaction. So even though I think a lot of times we're trained to focus on getting ahead, our jobs, success, other things, um, it having good relationships is really important to happiness. This study in the UK found that it was following 100,000 adults over time and was looking for what are the factors that help prevent or protect against depression. So they looked at 106 different factors, things like sleep, exercise, diet, different, meditation, all of those different things, and found that having somebody to confide in, having people that we can talk to about what is really going on in our lives was the strongest factor in preventing depression, and more important than any other factor in preventing suicide. So just a couple, I want to just share, I know many of you are here, work in suicide prevention and are concerned obviously about reducing suicide risk. So I want to share two studies. These are the last studies I'm going to share with you around this. But this one was looking at 19-year-olds and followed them for a year and found that when perceived peer support increased, that suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts significantly decreased. And then this other study was looking at adolescents who had been hospitalized for suicide. And in the follow-up after hospitalization, adolescents who felt more connected with their peers were half as likely to attempt suicide. So I want to reduce risk, build connection. And another way of putting that is when you connect, you protect. So we can't we can't control the stressors that come at us, that come at students. There's a lot, there's a firestorm of stressors right now, but having connection, helping people build connection is like a shield. So it helps build resiliency and can help reduce those negative impacts. So I want to just pause. Lisa, maybe you could actually, let me just maybe I'll pop out of the PowerPoint for a minute, but I want to kind of hear people's reactions to all of that data, and then also think about like what would happen if each student had at least one close friend or even like 3 to 5 close friends. Um, so pop that in the chat, what your thoughts are. Any reactions to the data I shared, and what would happen if each student on campus had one or more close friends? Let's see.
They're doing that. We've had some great comments coming in
Awesome.
about RA interviews. Some of the students are sharing the reason they're applying is to meet more people. Um, Again, another comment, I always thought Gen Z being the loneliest was an interesting statistic. Are they more lonely? Is it now more acceptable to talk about it? Somebody mentioned, Janice said, everybody That explains why everybody wants a therapist. It's replacing our lost networks and our lost
Yeah.
connections. There is a question a couple of people have asked, will we get access to these slides after? I know that we will be sending out the video recording after, but will the slides be included?
Yes, so I can send out a link to the slides as well as to the recording. Absolutely. And yeah, I think that oops, what just happened? There we go. Um so I think that comment about the kind of the professionalization of support is really interesting. Everybody wants a therapist as opposed to developing social support. And I think sometimes there's also just like an increase in fear. So like, oh, I don't know how to handle mental health issues. So I'm just gonna, instead of just having conversations about difficulties, um, I'm going to refer you to a professional. So I think there's, I think it kind of happens from both sides that people are like, I don't want to burden my friends. I'm afraid of being a burden. I'm going to go talk to a professional. And then on the receiving side of like, I don't know how to deal with this, which there's some truth in that. We don't want peers to be feeling like they have to take care of um, a friend's mental health issues, but also having natural support and talking about things in life is super important. All right, I see lots of comments coming in around what it would be like to have more friends. Anxiety levels may drop, better health, better mental health. The world feels so much less overwhelming. Yes. And there's Charlotte, there's like studies that show that we even feel less like physical pain when we have when we're with people that we care about versus alone. And we're able to do more challenging things. Students help students graduate. Absolutely, Josie. Nice, nice. I'm glad you're here, Josie. Um, Josie's doing Project Connect at Kansas State University. Those with close friends more likely to succeed. Yes. More likely to engage with society. Yeah, so there's this like kind of like mass withdrawal um from society, a little bit just more anxiety around engaging, I think. The friend, they might find the courage to be more extroverted in a safe space. Yes. Really helpful for students to have peer connections. Due to a lack of friends and support systems, students can misunderstand our empathy and being available to support them. Impact retention, academic success, stronger community engagement. Yes. Less shame in the difficulties they face. Yes. They see that they're not alone. And that, when I do groups, I feel like that is so powerful. Like it seems so simple that other people are sharing that they're struggling too. Like maybe they're struggling around making friends. And then when they hear that other people are sharing that struggle, it just relieves that shame and can have a really big impact. Um, Happier, less stressed students. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for those comments. All right, so I want to share I worked at Amherst College in Massachusetts for several years, and we did the National College Health Assessment Survey that I was mentioning that the statistic from. And so we saw that we had even higher than normal rates of loneliness. And so I really, because it has such a huge impact on mental health, I wanted to dive deeper. So there's we did I think 8 focus groups with different student communities on campus to kind of learn about like what is this about? Why is this so hard? And what's working, what's not working. And so these are themes from the focus groups. This is pre-pandemic. Unfortunately, I think these themes are still very, very relevant today. Students talked about interactions feeling surface level or superficial, and really craving deeper conversations and friendships. They talked about that it was okay to share certain stressors, like it's okay and feels comfortable to talk about academic stress, about having 10 papers to write and pulling an all-nighter, having so much to do, but it doesn't feel comfortable to talk about maybe more personal stressors like family issues or economic issues, identity issues, insecurity, those kinds of things. There's a pressure to present well. It's hard to be vulnerable. And that this was a really big barrier to connection because if everybody's presenting as if like, I'm doing great, I'm on top of things, then when you are struggling, you're looking around and it looks like everybody else is doing great. And so then it feels like, wow, I'm the only one who isn't. Um, and so that was a real barrier to connection, and also just not letting people know how you're really doing. They talked a lot about campus activities. There's like tons, often tons, maybe sometimes too many campus activities to choose from, so that can feel overwhelming. But those activities that are theoretically the way they would connect with other students don't necessarily facilitate those relationships. So lots of events are one-off. So they might meet somebody, but then never see them again. And lots of events are geared towards extroverts. And so it's like, if it's a big event that doesn't have a structure, it can feel really uncomfortable for somebody who might be introverted or socially anxious or on the spectrum to show up. And to show up alone. So a lot of those events feel like, wow, I have to have friends to feel comfortable to go to those events, but I want to go to those events to make friends. And they don't provide opportunities for connection. Also, these negative social comparisons, unrealistic expectations. So this is also impacted, I think, by social media, as is the pressure to present well. But still, these narratives of college is the best 4 years of your life. You're supposed to be having this amazing time. You're supposed to meet your best friend in, the first week of college, and that's it. And also, just wow, like it looks like everybody else is connected and has found their friends and I haven't. And it's just hard to initiate connections and follow up. So these are student themes. I think a lot of these themes are things that professionals can relate to as well. Definitely loneliness is not just among students. It's across all age groups, and faculty and staff can also feel very lonely and isolated. The video mentioned, and I kind of mentioned in the focus group themes also, that there's this idea that friendships are supposed to just happen, that they're supposed to happen naturally. I think media, everybody already has friends, and so you don't really know how they made them, but they already have them. Or again, you're just supposed to kind of like meet and hit it off, and that's that. So I want to share a little bit of a couple studies on friendship and how friends are made, and compare the research on the let friendships evolve naturally approach versus being more intentional. So this study is by a researcher named Jeffrey Hall, who was looking at first-year college students who didn't know anybody on campus and wanted to find out how much time do students need to spend together to go from being acquaintances to good friends. And I'd love you to type in the chat, how many hours do you think students need to spend together to go from acquaintance to good friends? Lisa, would you read out what people are saying.
Sure. And I was also trying to, I was looking up there was a great video, um, that if you have the link to it, I was looking up, it looks like the link's been taken down for now.
Oh,
So just
it's
FYI.
moved. So I will share that. I'll share the link to that video in a follow-up email so I can give you the link to that video. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
Donna says it feels that sometimes students don't realize the effort they should place when reaching out and being persistent and making connections. Okay, numbers. We got 250, 400, 500. I have no idea, but many. 300, 400, 243. Love it. 240, 243. That's great. Okay.
All right. So, okay, this is like sometimes I have people guess like, well, I've had people guess from 1 to 1,000. So you're in the right range, but you're probably more knowledgeable because you're guessing higher than many people often do. So for students to become casual friends, 43 hours spent together. To become friends, 57 hours. And to be good friends, 119 hours. So that's a significant amount of time. And also, he found that time in the classroom didn't necessarily contribute. So probably depends on the class structure and the size of the class, but for the most part, this is outside of class time. So that's significant. He did a parallel study for those of you who are curious. He did a parallel study with adults who had relocated to a new city, and that was 219 hours. So um, more time than students. But in the follow-up period, the adults were more likely to have maintained those friendships. So I think on a college campus, the interactions are probably closer together, more condensed, and so the friendships develop more quickly, but might not be maintained as much. So this is still a very, when you think about a few of you mentioned time pressures as one of the obstacles to making friends, it's a significant amount of time. Arthur Aaron, different researcher, was looking at how can we create closeness and found that two strangers can get close in less than 1 hour. So very, very different results. So the first one is kind of like going about your regular life, making friends on your own. And that can be very circuitous. I think a lot of times, as many of you commented, um, people can be kind of hesitant, cautious, afraid of being vulnerable, taking risks. And so it can be a really slow process. A lot of times we're like, I don't know if the other person's interested. Do they want to be friends? Maybe they already have friends. I don't want to be that like friendship hungry gremlin the student in the video was talking about versus Arthur Aaron was bringing two students into a lab and giving them a specific set of instructions that was designed to help them get close. So, um, how do we translate this from the lab to real life? So, how do we speed up the process of making friends and how do we make it easier? What was Arthur Aaron's secret? So, he called it gradually escalating reciprocal self-disclosure. This is what he identified in his research that helped people get close that quickly. I like to call this sharing, move it out of research speak. So if you want people to get, to get to know you, to get close, we have to share about things that matter. We have to let them see who we are. We have to, share what's important to us, share our interests, share our feelings, share the things that are going on in our lives. Sharing alone isn't enough. This is, what Arthur Aaron was doing in the lab, what he identified, but you have probably had the experience, I'm guessing all of you have had the experience of sharing something, maybe something important to you that did not help build connection. If somebody's looking at their phone, if they're distracted, if they, have a negative response or a judgmental response. And so, in addition to sharing, we also have to show that we care. There's lots of different ways to show caring. Very foundational is listening, being engaged, asking questions. This sounds super simple, but as you were talking right at the beginning about all of the things that interfere with friendship, technology really has pulled our attention in other directions. And there's lots of other things pulling our attention as well. So it can be very hard to be present, to give somebody your attention. And also expressing liking, like showing somebody that you care, letting them know that they matter to you. People like people who like them. So, if you want somebody to like you, if you want to be friends, express liking to them and they'll probably like you back. And this is my dog, Iggy. So dogs are really great at expressing liking, enthusiasm, and affection. And this is probably why we like them so much, because they're so good at that. So the friendship formula, these are the science-backed behaviors that have been shown to build connection, sharing, caring, and also when necessary, repairing, learning to have difficult conversations um, when misunderstandings come up. I think often we're like, especially as tolerance for discomfort decreases, people can just ghost or just be like, I'm gonna avoid this. And then it's hard to work through and sustain relationships or maintain closeness. So just one problem with this formula, which is that people don't often follow it. So I'm curious from you, we have this friendship deficit. We have this loneliness epidemic. People are craving closer friendships. We know that sharing, caring, and repairing reliably work to build them. So why aren't we doing it? What's getting in the way? It's not like we don't know how to build connection. And it's something we have to figure out. So let's see.
Ivana said there may be a paradox of choice, where if a connection doesn't immediately happen with one person, a student may feel they can try with many others. Kind of like the same thing that comes up with dating struggles. Um, oh, there's so many wonderful things coming in. It takes energy and a bit of confidence. People are
Mhm.
exhausted, anxious. There's a fear of failure. It's an
Yeah.
art of balance, to find that balance of small talk versus the instant intimacy that goes with more deep conversations. Here, a lot of people don't have sufficient capacity. Uh,
Hmm.
you hear that. Lack of social skills, for sure, comes up
Yeah.
because it can feel uncomfortable and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Charlotte says it takes someone taking a risk and being vulnerable, at least initially. Ivana mentions the lack of emotional resilience to keep trying, that
Hmm.
balance, creating boundaries, plus being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Uh, Small talk doesn't come easy to all. And I think it's been
Yeah.
mentioned a number of times that we don't practice small talk very often in our culture, or as often as we used to. Fear
Hmm.
of rejection comes up, giving up after failed attempts. So a lot of really, really great comments to this.
Yes. Yes. So all of the above. Um, it can feel awkward, yes. So many, many comments. It can feel awkward, uncomfortable, vulnerable. Um, and we're afraid of rejection. So I think that's probably the most common and like pretty universal. So I like this gift. This reminds me of myself in my 20s of like as an introvert of like I want to be friends, but I don't know if other people do. So I'm gonna wait for them to go first. If they ask me a question, then I'll respond, or if they kind of initiate, then great. But if everybody's waiting for somebody else to go first, it's a lot of people standing around awkwardly, just like waiting for somebody else to break the ice. Also, I think it violates social norms. The social norm typically is like, hey, how's it going? Fine. How are you? Fine. How was your weekend? Good. How about you? Good. And so it can feel hard to get beyond that into the deeper, the escalating reciprocal self-disclosure. So, most people don't go around being like, hey, do you want to engage in gradually escalating reciprocal self-disclosure? And I don't recommend doing that. Um, but if we want to help students make friends, then we need to create intentional spaces that facilitate sharing and caring. So spaces that have a different social norm, where the social norm is we're going to talk more deeply than how's it going? Fine. And to help people get to know each other. So I want to talk about Project Connect, which is that intentional program that makes it easier to meet people and make friends and creates the social norm of engaging in that sharing and caring. So it meets in small groups of 5 to 7 participants. That size is really important. It's really hard to get to know people if you're in a group of, say, 20. People aren't going to be talking as much. So this size is really important. It meets for 6 1-hour sessions. So in the focus groups, one-off events were mentioned. So having that sustained connection over time really helps people deepen relationships, get to know each other better, and have that foundation for following up with each other and for friendship. Led by a certified facilitator, so that helps take away some of the awkwardness. It provides there's a structure to the groups, so it's not, the introvert's nightmare of like, oh, I just have to mingle and make conversation. It's step-by-step prompts led by a trained student or faculty or staff facilitator. Can be offered virtually or in person. So this is a student at the University of North Carolina. Joining Project Connect was a really good way for me to come out of my comfort zone and open up to new people. So again, that's the sharing piece of the friendship formula, that it provided like a practice ground, a safe structure for that. This is a college in Okanagan, BC, Okanagan College, saying the facilitator saw how Project Connect helps students break the ice, build friendships, and feel more confident on campus. It's amazing to watch students arrive as strangers, form real connections, and develop a stronger sense of belonging. So each session has, again, like step-by-step activities. So the first session includes introductions and overview in coming up with guidelines to create some psychological safety in the group. And then there's guided conversation prompts. So the prompts really help what the Arthur Aaron research was showing of helping people um, self-disclose in this gradually escalating. They gradually go from lighter to deeper conversation. Um, and it's reciprocal, like each person has an opportunity to share. So again, that structure helps people who might be more, more shy, more hesitant to share. The second session, there's a check-in prompt for each session that is much more specific than the how are you. It's usually kind of an up and a down, like what's something that's bringing you joy, what's something that's causing you stress, or share about your happies and crappies. Uh, then each participant contributes a question. So they actually do this at the end of session one. They write an anonymous question and that's read out in the second group so that the group can answer the questions that they created. Then the provided conversation prompts. Third session, again, a check-in, sharing a personal photo. There's a vent and validate exercise, which is essentially helping practice empathy and validating as opposed to, like fixing, problem solving, offering advice. So helping people feel heard, and then conversation prompts. Fourth session includes a mini connection project where they're writing notes of gratitude, appreciation, support to other people on campus. Again, guided conversation prompts. Fifth session, they share a personal object that's meaningful to them. There's a structured exercise where they're able to give other group members positive feedback, and then a reflection exercise. And the last session is a reunion activity. So this is a social activity that the group decides on together that is really more informal. So it's helping them transition from the structure of the group to spending time together more informally. So that's kind of a very brief outline of what the sessions look like. The feedback has been really positive. So this is from doing the groups on the Amherst College campus for 2 years. We had just over 200 students participate, and 98% said they would recommend it to a friend. 95% said they were interested in participating again. And I've trained facilitators now from over 120 campuses, and feedback, there's a range of feedback, but it tends to be, in the 90s. And then we did an assessment, a pre and post assessment, because we really wanted to figure out how this is impacting loneliness. So we used the UCLA loneliness scale before participation and then again after participation. So we recruited 80 participants and broke them into a Project Connect group and a random waitlist control group. So participants showed a decrease in loneliness. The waitlist group showed an increase in loneliness. And I think that's because the follow-up period was like pre-finals at a very stressful point in the semester where we see a spike in all mental health concerns, but that wasn't experienced by participants. So that was a significant result, and a number of campuses have actually replicated this using the UCLA loneliness scale. Then this is a pre and post assessment. This is from the Illinois State University campus. So increase in comfort, meeting people and making friends after participating, increase in number of friends on campus, but pretty big jump in student satisfaction and liking it on the campus, which we know has a big impact on retention. Also a big jump in feeling like the campus environment is supportive and that the college cares about them. I'm guessing that probably also impacts retention. and feeling a jump in feeling connected to the campus and the people here. Another participant quote that Project Connect melts away the timidness and inhibition often felt when meeting new people. So that's all the awkwardness and discomfort we've been talking about. Every time I participated in a group, I left with stronger connections between myself and the other members. So applications, campuses are using Project Connect in all kinds of different ways. I just wanted to highlight a few. So the first year experience, helping first year students make friends and kind of helping ease that social transition to campus. Um, Kansas State University, I mentioned, and Josie's here from Kansas State University, offering it to students before they even arrive on campus. So offering virtual groups that are led by trained orientation leaders or other facilitators. Um, and so they have actually had hundreds of students go through so that they're arriving on campus where they already have made a couple of friends, and that can really make a big difference. So this is the potential if you're able to scale it, if you're able to train a big group of students to be facilitators, to lead these groups, it has the potential to help hundreds of students make friends before they arrive on campus. And KSU last year made the Princeton review list #2 on campuses students love or happiest students. So obviously, I think they're probably doing lots of things, but this is one of them that is helping increase student satisfaction. Embedding it into a class program or other requirement so that it's not something that students have to volunteer for and carve out extra time for. So examples of that, there's a few campuses that have built it into psychology classes or FYE classes, and that's gone really, really well to have it just as part of the student experience. It could be a health and well-being, if you have like health and well-being requirement or leadership certificate, community engagement requirement, that can work really well if you have like several options and people can choose this as one of their options to meet that requirement. As part of a advising or peer mentorship program, like having success teams. So if you have peer mentors who work with groups of students, not just one-on-one, this can be a really good model to, again, help take away some of that awkwardness of like, what do I talk about with my mentee or my mentor, and help build relationships within a group. And also themed groups have worked really, really well. So some people just do offer open enrollment groups, but you can also offer specific themed groups, and that could be anything. LGBTQ, Latinx, students of color, first gen, international. I know there's a lot of pushback around the DEI groups, but there can be ways of making them open to everybody, like LGBT and allies group, or something that is still specific but open. Neurodiverse groups, that's worked really well. There's a campus, University of Wisconsin, used it in among living learning community. They've now expanded it to some other living learning communities as well. So it's building relationships within a residential space. Sacred Heart, way back in the pandemic, used it specifically with nursing students. UNC used it with public health students, so using it with a particular major. Graduate students, several campuses are doing that. Several campuses are doing faculty and staff groups, which I always highly encourage to build faculty and staff connection. So if you're interested in bringing Project Connect to your campus, um, it's important to think about like who would facilitate groups, and that could be student leaders, student health educators, staff, faculty. There's people on different campuses who kind of house the program in different departments. So it could be the counseling center, wellness, health education, first year experience, whatever makes sense to you. Train facilitators. So there's a facilitator certification training. And then once you're trained, run groups and help students make friends. This is a facilitator I worked with at Amherst College who said, "My time as a Project Connect facilitator is no doubt among some of my most cherished, fulfilling memories of my college career." So she is an amazing student, but was really struggling with finding a sense of belonging or connection to campus. And so the facilitator role really helped her to feel like she was contributing, doing something meaningful, as well as making friends with the other participants. And the facilitator role is kind of a participant facilitator role where facilitators are also engaging in the conversation prompts and the activities. So they're connecting and leading. They are not like educating. And then a final quote from a student. I think this was at Williams College. It's a great way to meet people outside of your friend group and make amazing friendships.